At exactly 2:47 a.m. on a cold December night in Lagos, a 19-year-old boy pressed his torn backpack against his chest like it was the only thing keeping him alive. And in many ways, it was. His name was Obinna Eze. And on this night, sleeping under the Ojuelegba Bridge, with rats running past his feet and the sound of heavy trucks shaking the ground above him, he made a decision that would one day put his name on buildings, scholarships, and the lips of millions. But before we get there, you need to understand how he ended up here. Because this story is not about luck. It's not about talent. It's about what happens when the world crushes you so completely that the only direction left is up or death. Obinna chose up. Let me take you back to the beginning. Obinna grew up in a small village called Umuahia, in Abia State, Nigeria. His father was a carpenter. His mother sold tomatoes in the local market. They were not rich. They were not poor. They were the kind of family that survived on hope and hard work. Obinna was different from the other children. While his mates played football in the dusty streets, he would sit under the mango tree with a notebook, writing. He wrote ideas, strange ideas, ideas about businesses, about inventions, about solving problems in their village. At age 12, he told his father he wanted to create a company that would help farmers store their crops without them spoiling. His father laughed and said, "My son, face your books. This village is not for dreamers." But Obinna could not stop dreaming. It was like a fire inside him that refused to die. When he finished secondary school, he was the best student in his class. His teachers said he had a bright future. His mother cried tears of joy. His father finally began to believe that maybe, just maybe, his son could become something. Obinna applied to the University of Lagos to study business administration. He wanted to learn how to build the companies he had been dreaming about since childhood. He got admitted. The whole village celebrated. His mother sold extra tomatoes to save money. His father worked late nights making furniture to raise funds for his school fees. Relatives contributed small amounts. It was a community effort. Obinna was going to Lagos to become something great. But then something happened that changed everything. 2 months before Obinna was supposed to leave for university, his father collapsed in his workshop. It was a stroke. The village clinic could not help him. They rushed him to Aba, but it was too late. Obinna's father died holding his hand. The funeral cost money they did not have. Relatives who had contributed before suddenly disappeared. His mother fell into depression and could no longer work at the market. Just like that, everything fell apart. Obinna's university dreams were crushed. The money meant for his fees was used for the funeral and medical bills. There was nothing left. But Obinna did not give up. He told his mother he would go to Lagos anyway. He would find work, save money, and still make something of himself. With tears in her eyes, his mother gave him her blessing and the only thing she could afford, a torn backpack that once belonged to his father. Inside that backpack, Obinna put one thing he could not live without: his notebook. The notebook filled with all his ideas, all his dreams, all his plans for the future. He arrived in Lagos with 3,000 naira in his pocket and fire in his heart. But Lagos had other plans. Within 2 weeks, his money was gone. The relatives who had promised to help him suddenly did not recognize him. His uncle said his house was too small. His aunt said she had her own problems. Doors that were supposed to be open slammed shut in his face. Obinna found himself walking the streets of Lagos with no food, no shelter, and no one to call. He slept in uncompleted buildings. He begged for food at bus stops. He washed cars at IKEA for 50 naira. Some days he did not eat at all. But the worst part was not the hunger. It was not the cold. It was not even the loneliness. The worst part was when his phone rang one night. And it was his childhood best friend, Chidi. Obinna answered with hope in his voice. Maybe Chidi could help. Maybe Chidi knew someone in Lagos. But Chidi did not call to help. He called to tell Obinna that people in the village were laughing at him. They said the boy who dreamed of building companies was now a beggar in Lagos. They said he had failed. They said his father's death was a curse that followed him. Chidi said, "Obinna, I think you should just come back home. Accept your fate. Some people are not meant to succeed." And then he hung up. Obinna stood in the darkness, phone in hand, tears streaming down his face. That night, something inside him broke. He walked to the Ojuelegba Bridge, the bridge where the forgotten people of Lagos slept, the homeless, the mad, the abandoned. He found a spot near the pillar, far from the others, and he lay down with his torn backpack as his pillow. Above him, cars drove past. People were going home to their families. People were living their normal lives. And here he was, 19 years old, with nothing. He opened his backpack and pulled out his notebook. He looked at the pages filled with ideas, ideas that now felt foolish, dreams that now felt impossible. He thought about throwing it away. He thought about ending everything. But something stopped him. He did not know it then, but that something was the same force that had been burning inside him since he was a child. The fire that refused to die. He could not throw away the notebook. So instead, he did something strange. He started writing. Under the dim light of distant street lamps, with tears still wet on his cheeks, Obinna began to write a plan. A plan to survive. A plan to escape this bridge. A plan to build everything he had ever dreamed of. He wrote until his hand cramped. He wrote until the sun came up. And when morning came, he stood up with a different look in his eyes. He was not the same boy who had laid down the night before. Little did the world know that they had just witnessed the birth of a giant. The next months were brutal. Obinna found work as a cleaner at a small cyber cafe in Yaba. He was paid 500 naira a day. It was nothing, but it was something. He cleaned the computers. He swept the floors. He worked from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. But here is what nobody knew. After everyone left, when the cafe was empty and quiet, Obinna would sit at one of the computers and teach himself. He taught himself how to use the internet. He taught himself about business. He taught himself about technology. He watched videos. He read articles. He studied successful companies. And every night, he would go back to his corner under the bridge and write in his notebook. He refined his ideas. He planned. He dreamed. The owner of the cyber cafe was a man named Alhaji Musa. He was a strict man with little patience, but one day he noticed something. Obinna had fixed a computer that had been broken for weeks. He had learned how to do it by watching tutorials on YouTube. Alhaji Musa called him aside and asked, "Who taught you this?" Obinna replied, "I taught myself, sir." Alhaji Musa looked at him for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. From that day, Alhaji Musa began to pay Obinna more. He gave him extra responsibilities. He even let him sleep in the back room of the cafe instead of under the bridge. But then, something happened that changed Obinna's path forever. One evening, a young woman walked into the cyber cafe. Her name was Eze. She was a marketing manager at a small tech company in Victoria Island. Her laptop was not working, and she needed someone to fix it urgently. Obinna looked at the laptop. It was a problem he had never seen before. But instead of panicking, he did what he always did. He learned. He spent 3 hours researching and experimenting. Eze waited impatiently. But finally, at 11 p.m., Obinna fixed the laptop. Eze was amazed. She asked him, "Where did you study?" Obinna looked at the ground and said, "I did not go to university, Ma. I taught myself." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she asked a question that would change his life. "Do you have any ideas? Any business ideas?" Obinna hesitated. Then he pulled out his notebook. For the next 2 hours, he showed Eze his ideas. Ideas about connecting farmers directly to buyers using mobile phones. Ideas about helping small businesses manage their inventory. Ideas about using technology to solve everyday Nigerian problems. Eze listened with her mouth open. When he finished, she said 5 words that Obinna would never forget. "You need to meet my boss." 1 week later, Obinna found himself in a shiny office in Victoria Island, facing a man named Mr. Kingsley Okonkwo, the CEO of a growing tech company. Mr. Okonkwo listened to Obinna's ideas. He looked at the notebook. He asked questions. And when the meeting was over, he said, "Young man, I am not going to give you a job." Obinna's heart sank. But then Mr. Okonkwo continued, "I am going to give you something better. I am going to invest in your ideas. We will build this together." Obinna almost collapsed. Over the next 5 years, Obinna worked harder than he had ever worked in his life. There were failures. There were setbacks. There were nights when he wanted to give up. But every time he felt like quitting, he would open his old, torn notebook and remember the boy under the bridge. The boy who had nothing but refused to let his fire die. The company they built was called BridgeConnect. It started as a simple platform connecting farmers to buyers. But it grew, and grew, and grew. By the time Obinna was 27, BridgeConnect had transformed into one of the largest agricultural technology companies in West Africa. It had connected over 2 million farmers to markets. It had created thousands of jobs. It had changed lives. And Obinna Eze, the boy who slept under Ojuelegba Bridge, was now a multimillionaire. But here is the part of the story that will break your heart and put it back together at the same time. On the day BridgeConnect was valued at $100 million, Obinna did not celebrate in a fancy restaurant. He did not pop champagne with investors. Instead, he took a drive to Ojuelegba. He parked his car and walked to the bridge where he had once slept as a homeless teenager. He stood there for a long time, tears in his eyes, remembering the cold nights, the hunger, the despair. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. 1 month later, Obinna announced the creation of the Eze Foundation, a foundation with one mission: to find young Nigerians with dreams but no opportunities and fund their ideas. The foundation would provide scholarships, business grants, and mentorship to young people who had been written off by society. And here is the beautiful part. Every single application that comes to the Eze Foundation is reviewed by a team that looks for one thing: notebooks. They look for young people who, despite having nothing, have notebooks filled with ideas. Young people who refuse to let their fire die. Because Obinna knows that the next great entrepreneur, the next world changer, might be sleeping under a bridge right now with nothing but a torn backpack and a dream. Today, the Eze Foundation has funded over 5,000 young Nigerians. Many of them have started successful businesses. Some have become millionaires themselves. All of them carry the legacy of a boy who refused to give up. When asked in interviews about his success, Obinna always says the same thing. I am not special. I am not more talented than anyone else. The only difference between me and the people who gave up is that I kept writing in my notebook. Even when nobody believed in me, I believed in the ideas. Even when I wanted to die, my dreams kept me alive. He pauses and then adds something that gives everyone chills. Success is not about where you start. It is about refusing to let your fire die. There is one more thing you need to know. Remember Chidi, the childhood friend who called Obinna to tell him he had failed? The one who told him to accept his fate? Years later, Chidi's son applied for a scholarship from the Eze Foundation. He was a brilliant young man with big dreams, but no money for university. Obinna personally approved the scholarship. When asked why he would help the son of someone who had abandoned him, Obinna said, "The boy is not his father, and my purpose is not revenge. My purpose is to make sure that no dreamer ever feels as alone as I did under that bridge." So here is the moral of this story, and I want you to carry it with you. Your darkest moment is not your end. It is your beginning. The world will reject you. Friends will abandon you. Family might fail you. You might find yourself sleeping under bridges with nothing but your broken dreams. But as long as you hold on to your fire, as long as you keep writing in your notebook, as long as you refuse to let your dreams die, you have not lost. The silent years, the years when nobody claps for you, the years when you are invisible, those are the years that build your foundation. Those are the years that make your success unshakable. Nobody applauded Obinna when he was under that bridge. Nobody saw his tears. Nobody felt his hunger. But he kept going anyway. And now his name funds million-dollar dreams. So I want to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. What dream are you about to give up on? What fire is flickering inside you that you are tempted to let die? Do not let it die. Keep writing in your notebook. Your bridge is not your final destination. It is just part of your story. And one day, you will stand where Obinna stands, looking back at your struggle, thankful that you never gave up. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own fight, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes, a story is all it takes to keep someone's fire burning. Stay strong. Keep dreaming. Keep writing. Your breakthrough is closer than you think.